We're just about ready to wrap up an examination of whether the Gospels are reliable. We looked at three things so far, right? Are they written early enough? Have they, can they be corroborated in some way? Have they changed over time? They've been honest and accurate over time. The last aspect of eyewitness reliability is bias. If you find bias, if you find that something is motivating people to lie, then you shouldn't trust, or at least you should be skeptical or suspicious about what they tell you, especially if they've got good gain, they can gain something important by their lie. Look, we have a bar in our town. And every new trainee, every new patrol officer is going to get dispatched to a bar fight if it occurs at this bar, because it's notorious for bar fights on the weekend. And we want to see if our new guys can actually do the job. So if you're a trainee and you've got a field training officer and there's a bar fight at this bar, you're going to get dispatched to have to deal with the bar fight. Well, why? Because it's a great exercise in learning about truth telling. Because when you get there, there's going to be two drunk fighters, and one's going to say that the other person started it and he should go to jail. And that guy's going to say, no, that guy started it, he should go to jail. And trying to figure out who you should trust in this and who's motivated to lie to you, it's a nice little exercise for trainees. Well, why do we do that? Why do we want trainees to learn about what motivates people to lie? Because it'll help you determine if a statement is reliable. Something similar happens here. I've learned a long time ago that there are only 3 reasons why anyone lies. They're the same 3 reasons why anyone commits a murder. You might think, oh, I can think of 100 reasons why somebody would commit. No, there's only 3 reasons why someone commits a murder. Only 3 reasons why someone commits a theft. Only 3 reasons why you've ever done anything. As a matter of fact, all sin comes back to only one of 3 motivations. And once you know what those 3 motivations are, you can actually test to see if someone is lying to you. Let me explain them to you. Maybe you're already thinking this way. The first is simple: financial gain. People do a lot of crazy things for money. A lot of stupid occurs because of the pursuit of money. The second one you might also kind of get easily, and that is either sexual or relational lust. Those kinds of motivations also will drive people to do things they shouldn't do. So we've got so far money and sex. The third thing is a little more nuanced. It is the pursuit of power. Of respect, authority, position, influence. These are things that are in the power category that motivate people to do things they shouldn't do. When someone's lying to me, I always know that their bias or their motivation lies in one of those 3 areas. It makes it very easy to assess a lie. If we think that the claims made in the Gospels by the original authors are lies, okay, we could test that, because if they're lies, if they're lying to us, it's only for one of those 3 reasons. Those are the only 3 reasons why anyone ever lies. So the question then is, what did these writers have to gain in those 3 areas? Did they get a lot of money on the basis of their story? Did they develop girlfriends or a social relation? I mean, seriously, is that what drove them to say these things? Most people who are skeptical about the Gospels don't think it's those 2 things that are driving the authors. They think it's in the 3rd category. It's power. It's influence. Now, remember earlier we talked about the difference between possible and reasonable? I think it's quite possible people could have written the Gospels in the pursuit of power or authority or respect, right? At least they would be popular within their little religious community. But if that's what's driving them, is that reasonable? It might be possible, but is it reasonable? Think about it. Paul wrote most of the New Testament, right? So you're saying he's motivated by what? Why is he lying? It's not about money or sex, you say. It's about power, authority. Really? So Paul started off as a religious Jew in a position of religious authority and respect in his local community. In fact, he had enough authority and respect to draw the papers to execute Christians. So now you're telling me that Paul says, I'm going to jump out of my position of authority and respect in my religious community and jump in with these Christians and get beat up all over the known world for the next 20 years, hoping to someday return to a position of authority and power and respect? He started with that. That's a possible explanation, but it strikes me as an entirely unreasonable explanation, especially considering how every one of these authors died, how every one of these eyewitnesses died. Look, we know the stories are always pretty much the same. They're martyred in some horrific way. And whether we trust all those legends are 100% true or not, we know one thing. No one ever recanted. No ancient authority ever claims that any of these people ever recanted their story. Look, if you said to me that you were willing to die for what you believe as a Christian, I would tell you up front that has 0 evidential value. Lots of people will die for what they don't know is a lie. But this is the one group that would know if it's a lie. Their testimony is very different than mine in this century. They would know if they were telling the truth. I have to trust on the basis of reliability that they're telling me the truth, but they would know it because they actually experienced it. If they're willing to die for their claims, that's worth considering if it's reliable. And I think that actually demonstrates its reliability. Let me go one last objection, though, that's offered sometimes in this category, and that is this. Jim, I need to have a story about Jesus written by a non-Christian in order to believe it. I can't believe a story that's, if it's written by Christians, you can't trust it. They're biased. They like Jesus. Of course, they're going to say nice things about Jesus. They're Christians. So if you want me to believe something about Jesus, it cannot be from a Christian source. Oh my gosh, that is so stupid. Let me just kind of offer for you why that doesn't make any sense to me. If you're working robbery homicide, which I've worked for a number of years, and there's no homicide that day, you're going to work a robbery. I've worked a ton of bank robberies. Let me tell you a story about a bank robbery. A guy walks into a bank, does a very clever bank robbery. He comes in, he's got a pistol under his jacket, he's got a demand note, he puts it on the counter. The teller sees the demand note, sees the edge of the gun, and she starts giving him money. The cameras are capturing all of this, but they don't see the gun. All we see is a little note, and she just starts giving him money. It's a brilliant robbery if you think about it. The only problem is he didn't notice when he walked in that behind the assistant manager's desk was a girl named Kathy who had gone to high school with him, and she recognized him immediately. He didn't see her. She thought, well, when he's done with his transaction, I'll say hello. But now she looks at her coworker, the teller, and the teller's got a look on her face like, I'm being robbed. Push the button, I'm being robbed. Kathy is shocked. She's known this young man, Mark Hill, for years and years, but she's never known him to be the kind of person who'd ever do a bank robbery. As a matter of fact, of all the people she would make a list of who were capable of doing a bank robbery, this guy would be on the bottom of the list. Yet here he is before her very eyes doing a bank robbery. Do you think I should go over and interview Kathy about this? I don't think so. Can't trust her. And after all, she's convinced that Mark Hill is a bank robber. You might say she's a Mark Hillian. You can't trust Mark Hillians to tell you the truth about Mark Hill, can you? Do you see how stupid that is? The fact that she is convinced he's a bank robber does not exclude her. Why is she convinced? Because she saw it with her own eyes. She didn't start off thinking he was a bank robber. She ended up there convicted about it because she saw it with her own eyes. Now, if she writes a story about it, why would I toss it out as not reliable? Because now she's in a position of belief that Mark Hill is a bank robber. She's still credible. So now let's compare Matthew to Kathy. Matthew is a guy who is not expecting the Messiah. He's not part of the discipleship of John the Baptist. He's a guy named Levi who's collecting taxes. And he spends then 3 years with Jesus after being invited to join them. And after seeing all the stuff that Jesus does, all the stuff that Jesus teaches, and 3 years later, he's now a believer, and he writes an account called the Gospel of Matthew. Look, if you're looking for an account that is written by a person who was a skeptic before the event, just like Kathy was a skeptic before the event, it's called the Gospel of Matthew. He's not in it. He's not writing it because he was hoping for it to be true or he has a bias. He's writing it because he saw it with his own eyes. So now you've got 4 good reasons, the only 4 ways that we typically evaluate eyewitnesses to determine if they're reliable. We've just applied them to the Gospels, and in all 4 ways, they measure up. They're written early enough. They're corroborated. They haven't changed over time, and the people who wrote them don't present a bias that would cause them to lie to us. I got to the end of that as a non-Christian, evaluating the Gospels, and I said, well, what do I do with this now? What do I do with it? It was true. I made the case as robustly as I could. It's a cumulative case. In the participant's guide, you will see I've drawn out for you now the entire cumulative case. It's powerful. And that's why when people ask me, Jim, why are you a Christian? I don't say, well, you got 2 hours? I need about 2 hours to tell you why. It's a robust cumulative case, and it's worth our time. We have to master it so we can communicate it to others. I'm not a Christian because it's convenient or it works or it solves a problem or I'm a Christian because it's true, and we've just demonstrated it evidentially.